Resources and Energy Act Bill 8687. We have council back to the table with it, for another 45 minutes. It's not, actually, for another hour. No, 15 minutes, all right. Again, going through Matthew 5. Here we go. So let's keep, reading through. I think we left off on page 67.
Halfway through. We did it.
That's good.
All right, page 67. All right, so now we're changing topics. Act 250 is over. Now we're talking about, for now, we need to talk about other things.
Are we done with the, was it tier 3? We discussed it.
We have discussed the tiers. Yes,
No more tiers.
we are moving on. The regional plan.
At some point, I would like this thing to take a hard look at tier 3.
Yeah.
Which is being presented as sort of trade-off. Expedite housing development in the tier 1. And the idea is, yeah, but we got tier 3. And I am not sure a lot is coming from tier 3 that is north there. And maybe I'm wrong. But I would like to explore, and if not now, if not this morning.
Sure, I think we have a little bit of discussion, back on page 47, tier 3 gets a definition. And then a rulemaking. In the section that follows immediately after, but I think. We didn't. There's a lot yet to be figured out, so.
It's presented often, and talked about and promoted often as a kind of transaction. And I don't see environmental protection, and economic development as inherently at odds. So I'm not comfortable with the trade-off metaphor at all, or the meeting in the middle metaphor at all. Balance, however, since that is the approach that everybody seems to be taking, I'm not sure if it is a transaction, what the concern for environmental protection is getting, but it doesn't really have.
Sure. Well, thanks for bringing it up. I mean, I think it's a shared concern, and maybe given that you're raising it, if you and other committee members who want to think about it, sort of kind of hope for coming back to it. It's a pretty short section in the bill, which is 47 and 48 basically. Excuse me, and half of which is established in the working group.
Yeah, the proposition that we give special attention to environmental sensitivity. It's been that way for 50 years.
So on page 67, section 36 is amending 4302. So 4302 has been referenced many times already in this bill. 4302 establishes the goals for municipal and regional planning in chapter 117. And so there's a clear link being added to Act 250 and these goals. And so there are some changes added to the goals here. So this chapter shall be used to further the following specific goals. To plan development so as to maintain the historic settlement pattern of compact village and urban centers separated by rural countryside. Intensive residential development should be encouraged primarily in downtowns, village centers, planned growth areas, and village areas as described in 4348A of this title. I'll stop quickly and just say what came out of the regional planning report, which we will talk about in great depth in the next 30 pages, is the categories that will be uniform in the regional plans. And so these are the first sort of reference to them: downtown, village centers, planned growth areas, village areas. So we'll talk about those definitions later. And strict development along highways should be avoided. From discouraged to avoided. These areas should be planned so as to accommodate a substantial majority of housing needed to reach the housing targets developed for each region pursuant to 4348A9. Economic growth should be encouraged in locally and regionally designated growth areas. Employed to revitalize existing village and urban centers or both. On to page 68. Public investments, including the construction or expansion of infrastructure, should reinforce planned growth patterns of the area. And then development should be undertaken in accordance with the smart growth principles. Then jumping ahead. There's some changes on page 69.
Nice, quick, so 68, we get through development. In accordance with smart growth principles, then it's asterisk, what's going on in there, we don't even see, but like.
The goals section of 4342 is very long.
Yes.
There are 14 enumerated goals and then another list of goals in the B. So there's quite a few goals. I mean, I think they're all in this similar vein. Compact centers.
I just mean, so 5 is, it's one of the goals, it's from a goal section.
Yeah.
Got it.
So yeah, there's ellipses to indicate that some language is not being changed. Then 5 is another goal that still says identify, protect, and preserve important and historic features of the landscape. Can't remember why we left that in there. We probably made changes to it and undid those changes. Maybe. And then jumping to page 69. Number 11, still in the goals. To ensure the availability of safe and affordable housing for all Vermonters. Housing should be encouraged to meet the needs of a diversity of social and income groups in each Vermont community, particularly for those citizens of low and moderate income, and consistent with the housing targets provided for in subdivision 4348 AA 9. So again, adding reference to the housing targets.
Okay, we seen those housing targets yet, or they're coming?
I'm sure that section is in this bill. I suspect they were previously established, but I cannot remember, so yes, we will get there. There is a directive that there be housing targets established for each region. For how many housing units are needed.
RPC by RPC, they have defined units.
Yeah. The rest of the changes on this page are grammar or spelling changes. On page 70. Goal number 14. Is to encourage flood resilient communities. It is striking reference to fluvial erosion. I don't think that term is used anymore. And then finally, a new goal is being added as number 15. To equitably distribute environmental benefits and burdens as described in previous chapter 72, which is the environmental justice law. Maybe, and so I mean, one thing that came up is that RPCs are not specifically mentioned in the environmental justice law. And so this, and then a few other in the next section as well, there's some just clear references being added to the regional planning work to the environmental justice work. So next, section 37 is amending the duties of the regional planning commissions. The regional planning commission created under this chapter shall prepare a regional plan and amendments that are consistent with the goals established in 4302 of this title. So thus, we've partially just went through that list. And compatible with approved municipal and adjoining regional plans. When preparing a regional plan, the regional planning commission shall develop and carry out a process that will encourage and enable widespread citizen involvement and meaningful participation as defined in 3 VSA 6002, which is the environmental justice law. Develop the regional database with, that is compatible with, useful to, and shared with geographic information system, conduct capacity studies, identify areas of regional significance. And then the new language, consider the potential environmental benefits and burdens as defined in 3 VSA 6002 of the proposed plan. So, again, adding reference to, environmental justice. Then on page 72. The Regional Planning Commission shall review proposed capital expenditures prepared pursuant to 32 VSA Chapter 5 and the Transportation Program, prepared pursuant to to 19 VSA Chapter 1 for compatibility and consistency with regional plans, and submit comments to the Secretaries of Transportation and Administration and legislative committees of jurisdictions. And then finally, as part of the regional plan, define a substantial regional impact. As the term may be used with respect to its region, this definition shall be given substantial deference where relevant in state regulatory proceedings. So currently it's given due consideration, this is giving it substantial deference, which is a stronger level of deference.
So, sorry, I get why we use the ellipses asterisks, but these are all duties, and then is 17 yet another one of the duties?
Yes.
And that list, okay. And maybe this is just the term define substantial regional impact. Just not sure what word, but the bigger it's gonna be joining us. I when you're brought up, what is defining it a substantial regional impact?
So every region as part of their plan defines kinds of project
Okay,
or impacts that would rise to the level of a substantial regional impact. That is a process that already exists. And this is just increasing the level of weight that determination is given.
in state regulatory proceedings, so
Yeah.
we already did this on energy surveying with the PUC, if you had a whatever, defined energy element in your food count plan. As best you know, this is the first time we're extending that reweighting of report more broadly. I don't remember elsewhere us using substantial data.
I do think it's used in other legal. I think some agency decisions are according to substantial data.
I'm not challenging it, I'm just saying. Everything that I'd love to see that be helpful. What we're gonna do planning at the regional level, that it not be sort of treated as a suggestion, but it be only overridden if there's complying reason. It's a particular concept. Yeah.
And it says we're relevant, so what's relevant? You got two ways to please someone around.
Okay. Then where's the Jeremy Talisman? Do we can get to it, what is that qualifier, where relevant?
Well, so it only, regional planning, decisions are only, used in a few state proceedings, including Act 50.
So that.
Isn't it-
According to the regional plan,
It is not used currently in other state permitting processes necessarily.
is it mean? To be determined by the courts later, or what?
Would be determined by the other laws and other statutes that apply to other programs.
No, it's sort of per there are places in existing laws where regional plans have an emphasis that we have just said that when those are triggered, that the plan should be given substantial deference rather than due consideration.
The definition of substantial regional impact, yes.
So we're not expanding where it's applied, we're changing the level of deference given to it in those proceedings.
Yes.
So we could get an enumeration of where it already exists. Senator Watson.
Thank you. I think this is starting to crystallize what this is doing, but it. Is the substantial. Deference versus due consideration. That's something the state is doing, or is it? Okay, so the state would. Basically defer to. A regional thing.
Yeah, you just wanna hear from Charlie, so let's see.
Mostly I just want more, I just need a little more to like understand what this is doing. So,
Sure, I mean, due consideration is a pretty low level of weight. Substantial deference is significantly more weight.
okay,
Can I say the way I've thought about it when talking to people, and to tell me if it's correct or incorrect? In proceedings, if an entity like the RPC or a town came in, the PUC, I'll stick with the PUC where we changed it. They would say, well, our town plans, since we'd like to have energy development in this area and not elsewhere, and then. The application will go forward and the PUC might issue a CPD on that project, and they'd say, well, we showed up and told me we didn't want to see development there, and they'd say, well, we considered it. And then the complaints in town, it says the time, there was a lot, right? It was that they felt like due consideration was not adequate consideration, and so substantial deference. I thought of it as a teeter totter. When you start with due consideration, it's the PUC is gonna decide and they might change it, and if you change it to due consideration, whatever it was, the municipality show, should prevail unless there was a compelling reason not to prevail.
and this is about. Substantial regional impacts.
So that, I'm just saying that was a proceeding where we went through a lot of
Yeah,
trying to give local voices more influence in a state level proceeding. And I don't, Mr. Baker will fill us in on what proceedings you are involved in that you would love to see this applied to.
Yeah, for the record, Charlie Baker here, you have the RPC's state. To my knowledge, this really only applies in Act 250 criterion 10. So this is the issue when there's a difference between a municipal plan and a regional plan.
okay,
And so, now that we're putting more weight on these plans and working together bottoms up with the municipalities, so this is just kind of giving it more weight in front of the district commissions. In Act 250 decisions, but it's around, as was previously mentioned, the substantial regional impact. We each have to have a definition of that. It's usually about a scale of development or large scale developments. What that triggers this.
okay.
It's universal. It's triggered by the definition.
That's also thinking.
So in a proceeding before the board. In a proceeding before the board, tier 1A designation definition. Would this also apply?
Not
The
unless,
RPC is already, those people already, will be municipalities, and work reviewed by the time the RPC brings forward.
yeah, I would not think that this would be relevant to the tier 1A process in front of the NRB. I think it's more about individual permit applications that trigger a significant regional impact.
Mr. Schuth, I saw your feedback.
Yeah, Brian Shoup, PNRC, just for context, several years ago, this committee in the legislature created something called enhanced energy elements of local and regional plans, which are regional plans that, or local plans that their energy elements or chapters are approved by the Department of And that changes this 248 process from due consideration of the plan to substantial development. So there is a precedent for it. Easy.
Alright. On page 72, section 38. So now this is the purposes of a regional plan. So a regional plan shall be made with the general purpose of guiding and accomplishing a coordinated, efficient, equitable, and economic development of the region that will, in accordance with the present and future needs and resources, best promote the health, safety, order, convenience, prosperity, and welfare of current and future inhabitants, as well as efficiency and economy in the process of development. The general purpose includes recommending a distribution of population and of the uses of the land for urbanization, trade, industry, habitation, recreation, forest, agriculture, forestry, and other uses as will tend to. And there's new language being added as a new number 7. Help communities equitably build resilience to address the effects of climate change through mitigation, and adaptation consistent with the Vermont Climate Action Plan adopted pursuant to 10 VSA 592 and chapter 3 VSA chapter 72 the environmental justice law. Cool.
The I'm gonna answer the plan. Agrees with it, my climate council, yes, I'm just trying to think of its legal stance in terms of. A compelling consistency with not only the challenging like suggestions, but it's also pretty comprehensive. There were, I forget, 136 or 64 recommendations. And I'm just wondering what we're signing up for. I'll flag that for myself. But I'm trying to understand how that document, which is kind of advisory to the government and the legislature, whether or not we're finding ourselves to the recommendations of handle.
So this is the purpose section of the regional plan. It is how it is used currently is that the RPCs, when they're adopting the plan, should look to it as part of the rest of the list of things they need to address while they're building this plan. And so it's adding reference that the plan should specifically help communities build resilience to address climate change. Obviously, there are parts of the climate action plan that have nothing to do with action by the regional planning commission or the municipality specifically. But it does say consistent with. So I don't think that it's the strongest legal language tying their hands to anything necessarily. But it is one thing that the board, the ERB will also have potentially to consider when reviewing regional plans to see if the RPC is addressing resilience and mitigation.
Got my copy. That's the case.
We could have a longer lunchtime conversation. Okay, I don't want to derail us. Turn it down?
The 72 where it says the current and future inhabitants. As well as efficiency and economy. Right, yeah, page 72,
Oh, yeah.
19. I was just Googling the Ministry of the Future, a book about pardon? Which deals with climate change issues, development, et cetera, quite controversial, but how is to say, how do you have zoning and that kind of stuff who's responsible for the zoning dealing with the grandchildren as opposed to the people that wanna sell their property for the highest price today.
So this section is the purposes of the regional plan.
Yeah.
It is a plan, at least in part, for the future. So it is to help the region make decisions about where there should be growth, development, changes in construction, or where there shouldn't be, which I think does reflect an interest in the future inhabitants of that region.
Well, some would argue that we're changing the law because it doesn't reflect the future inhabitants. And how do we, who makes a decision for future inhabitants?
So again,
Maybe it's too big a philosophical
it
question,
is,
but
yeah.
there's a change in the statute that says not just the folks, the inhabitants, but the inhabitants to come. So how is that reflected differently in governing and authority according to this one?
So this is the purpose section of the regional plan. I don't know if I know how to specifically answer what you just asked, because this is the plan for the future of that region.
Maybe it's that it's always been implicit that they were planning for a future president. Now it's just being made explicit. Mr. Baker will be in the chair in a little while.
Like you said, if we were planning for future inhabitants, we wouldn't see. Had people for us plans for future inhabitants.
And
We wouldn't be here.
ancestors, think of your posterity.
Perfect segue.
Hold on a second.
Perfect
Think of
segue.
your posterity.
Thank you.
Segue.
John Adams.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's both, you know. Alright, section 39.
Now that we've all agreed, let's keep going.
So section 39, is the adoption of regional plans and amendments. So I'll just quickly flag. I made you this lovely timeline. The second timeline on it is the steps of the regional plan adoption. It references the existing process and then also the handful of changes that are being made to that process. So if you'd like to see it laid out, because a substantial portion of this bill is about the steps taken to adopt the regional plan amendments.
This is RPC plan adoption.
Yes.
This one right here.
Yes, okay. Thank you. So section 39. A regional planning commission shall adopt a regional plan. A plan for a region and any amendment shall be prepared by the regional planning commission. At the outset of the planning process and throughout the project process, regional planning commissions shall solicit the participation of each of their member municipalities, local citizens and organizations by holding informal working sessions that suit the needs of the local people. I'll stop quickly and say that the language on line 7 was a floor amendment.
On line 7,
Yeah.
each of their member municipalities.
Yeah. This I do think is making explicit what has been implicit. The RPCs are each made up of representation from their member municipalities, but this is directly requesting that they solicit their participation. The purpose of these working sessions is to allow for meaningful participation as defined in the environmental justice law, provide consistent information about new statutory requirements related to the regional plan, explain the reasons for new requirements, and gather information to be used in the development of the regional plan and future land use element. 60 days prior to holding the first public hearing on a regional plan, a regional planning commission shall submit a draft regional plan to the Environmental Review Board and Agency of Commerce and Community Development for preliminary review and comments related to conformance of the draft with section 4302 and 4348 and chapter 139. So 4348 is the next section, and we will get to that. The agency shall coordinate with other state agencies and respond within 60 days unless more time is granted by the regional planning commission. And so just to remind you, because we already talked about this, for the first time in recent memory, the ERB will be reviewing the regional plan and its maps for consistency with the statutory requirements. This is also giving the other state agencies the option to review and respond and provide comments on the plan before the approval process takes place. So then on page 75, the RPC has to hold two or more public hearings within the region after public notice. A minimum number of required public hearings may be specified within the bylaws of the regional planning commission. At least 30 days prior to the first hearing, a copy of the proposed plan or amendment, a report documenting conformance with the goals established in 4302, and the planned elements established in 4348, and a description of any changes to the regional future land use map. With a request for general comments, and for specific comments with respect to the extent to which the plan or amendment is consistent with the goals of 4302. Shall be delivered physically or electronically with proof of receipt, or sent by certified mail return for receipt requested to each of the following: the chair of the legislative body of each municipality within the region, the executive director of each abutting regional planning commission, the Department of Housing and Community Development, and Community Investment Board for formal review and comment. On to page 76, businesses, conservation, low-income advocacy, as other community or interest groups or organizations that have requested notice in writing prior to the date of the hearing is warned. And the agency of natural resources, the agency of agriculture, food and markets, agency of transportation, Department of Public Service, Department of Public Safety's Division of Emergency Management, and the Environmental Review Board. At least 30 days prior to the first hearing, the Regional Planning Commission shall provide each of its member municipalities with a written description of map changes within the municipality. A municipality-wide map showing old versus new areas with labels and information about the new tier structure under Chapter 50, including how to obtain Tier 1A or Tier 1B status, and the process for updating designated area boundaries. So I'll stop there. This subsection 2 was also a floor amendment.
Okay, then. Who was the?
Representative Sims.
What, all two, so starting on line 1813, basically.
Yeah.
Snowy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to try to understand this section, and this is, I think, kind of knowing that's a floor amendment explains why. My question was gonna be, they didn't mention tier 3. So it seems like this is geared towards trying to make sure a community knows where they can develop versus conversations about the other tiers. Like, this is more, the way I read this is it's not just information about what the regional plan necessarily is, it's geared particularly towards making sure that they're aware of development areas. Would that be a?
So I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I can address the full intent of this. The other difference, I guess I would say, is that the regional planning commissions are involved with mapping of the tier 1, at least the tier 1B areas. They will not necessarily be directly involved in the mapping of tier 3, but I think what you said may be accurate.
Yeah, because I was surprised that they didn't call out the other tier. So that led me to that. But thank you, that's.
Also, I will just say we haven't fully gotten there yet, but the regional plan updates that are contemplated in the next few sections potentially will happen before tier 3 is finalized. So the tier 3 will probably eventually be added to the regional planning maps, but they may not be done for the first round of updates that are gonna happen.
Okay. That's so, okay,
And
that's where I'm gonna find.
listen, section 2, did it replace something or it's an addition?
Addition.
Okay, Karen Rothman?
Something I am foggy on that has come up previously and I didn't ask it then, but we asked now. I had thought that under the new scheme, that designated areas, you know, were going away.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. That's the last 30 pages of this.
Okay, not going away. Okay,
Not going away.
okay, all right, thank you.
No, and so you caught the reference to the community investment board.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we don't,
So,
where is the community investment board coming in? It's in that place.
yes, it is in the last 30 pages of this bill, which is, so what is going to happen, and I think I've already sort of teased this, is that the designation will happen, designation program, designations will automatically happen. They're being renamed and they're being reconfigured and they will happen automatically as part of the regional plan mapping. And the board's approval of those maps. So that is why there was a reference, the board, the downtown board, the community investment board is no longer going to be making those decisions. The ERB will make those decisions, but this is why the community investment board is getting a look at the regional plan specifically.
So. Community investment board is, I don't know if it's reconfigured or just renamed, but the old downtown board.
Yes.
And are we changing its membership, purpose, all that jazz?
Yeah, not somewhat.
Okay.
It is becoming, it is losing its ability to issue designations, it's keeping its other duties. It's adding a few more members, as though it wasn't a large enough board. Yes,
And the designations continue because they're still gonna do things like offering technical assistance or incentives, stuff like
Incentives, yeah.
that. They become non-regulatory.
Yeah.
That's the chief thing, we're separating those two roles.
Yeah. Alright, so the. I don't know if you want me to read through the rest of this language that isn't changing.
How about just, let's, I'll happy to slow back down, but I think we focus on what's new.
So yeah, so people can submit comments and speak at the public hearings. The RPC can make revisions to its proposal, then they have to have another notice of whatever the changes are. And having a hearing on the changes. A regional plan, so on to page 77, a regional plan or amendment shall be adopted by not less than 60% vote of the commissioners representing municipalities. In accordance with the bylaw of the regional commission. And then it is striking reference here to the plan becoming a duly adopted and taking effect. And that's because that language is being replaced with subsection H. So within 15 days following adoption, so adoption is when the members of the RPC vote to adopt. They will shall submit its adopted regional plan to the ERB for determination of regional plan compliance with. A report documenting conformance with 43, the goals established in 4302. The plan elements established in 4348. And a description of any changes to the regional plan future land use map. The ERB shall hold a public hearing within 60 days after receiving a plan. And provide notice of it at least 15 days in advance, on page 78. By direct mail or electronically with proof of receipt to the requesting regional planning commission. Posting on the website of the ERB, publication of it in a newspaper with general circulation. In the region affected. The regional planning commission shall notify their municipalities and post on their website the public hearing notice. The ERB shall issue the determination in writing within 15 days after the close of the hearing on the plan. If the determination is affirmative, a copy of the determination shall be provided to the regional planning commission and the ERB. To the ERB,
Or to themselves.
if the determination is negative, the ERB shall state the reasons for denial in writing, if appropriate, and if appropriate, suggest acceptable modifications. Submissions for a new determination that follow a negative determination shall receive a new determination within 45 days. The ERB's affirmative determination shall be based upon findings that the regional plan meets the following requirements. Consistency with the state planning goals, as described in section 4302. But this chapter with consistency determined in a manner described under 4302 F1. Consistency with the purposes of the regional plan established in 4347. Onto page 79. Consistency with the regional plan elements as described in 4348 of this chapter.
Wait, but before we get too far, can we just agree that we would strike out on line 9 that the ERB would also receive it? I mean, like, I don't know if we can,
Yeah, I guess we're
I feel like
the,
maybe we could just authorize.
and it's talked about to other department, are we done?
Yeah, maybe.
I wonder if it was supposed to be community investment or.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
So
See, every,
we went back and forth about who was going to be making these decisions, so it could be the community investment board should be substituted in there.
so let's make that change for now, people have more thoughts on it, but otherwise. We wouldn't have them reporting to themselves. We can just.
at the very least.
Thank you.
Everything is yourself, cause.
That's what we like you.
Yeah, I'm generally pretty pleased.
So on page 79, consistency with the regional plan elements of 4348, except that 4352. Enhanced energy planning shall be under the sole authority of the Department of Public Service. Compatibility with adjacent regional planning areas in a manner described in 4302 F2. Objections of interested parties. An interested party who has participated in the regional plan adoption process may object to the approval of the plan or approval of the future land use maps by the DRB within 15 days following the plan adoption by the Regional Planning Commission. Participation is defined as providing written or oral comments for consideration at a public hearing held by the Regional Planning Commission. Objection shall be submitted using a form provided by the board. So I'll just stop here. So this is not a full appeal. But what we're talking about is during the RPC adoption process. If someone participates in the hearing on the plan and they provide written or oral comments and they do not, their objection is not addressed in the regional plan. After the regional plan is adopted, they can bring this objection to the ERB. And the ERB will then also hear their objection as part of their review process.
You said if their objection is not addressed, what if their objection is addressed, but the conclusion is something that they don't like? I mean, is there
I
a
guess,
difference between objection and?
sure. It's not spelled out specifically, so I guess, let me take a step back and say, it does not say that that the RPC has to address their objection, just that they have to have made some comment on the plan.
Okay.
They can still bring an objection to the board regardless. There isn't that specificity. If you would like to make that specificity, you can.
I just don't know, I'm just trying to find out, it's like noticing.
There's some additional language on the next page about this. So can we hold until we get to that? So. There's a definition of who's an interested person here. So an interested party means one or more of the following: any 20 persons signed petition who own property or reside within the region. The petition must designate one person to serve as the representative of the petitioners regarding all matters related to the objection. The designated representative must have participated in the regional plan adoption process as described in subdivision 1 of the section. Onto page 80. And a party entitled to notice under subdivision B, which is that list on the prior page. Of who is entitled to notice. Any objection under this section shall be limited to the question of whether the regional plan is consistent with the regional plan elements. And future land use areas as described in 4348 of this title. The requirements of 4352 related to enhanced energy planning shall be under the sole authority of the Department of Public Service and shall not be reviewed by the ERB. The ERB shall hear any objections of the regional plan adoption concurrently with the regional plan review. Under this section and under 2327, under 6027. The ERB decision of approval of a regional plan shall expressly evaluate any objections and state the reasons for their decisions in writing. If applicable, the decision to uphold an objection shall suggest modifications to the regional plan.
The cross-reference to 6027 is what?
The list of duties of the ERB, and actually, I feel like that maybe should be with 23.6, so. Yeah, that's the list of duties of the ERB has, which includes review of the regional plan. If. I should consider, I will consider whether or not it should be 6033, which also spells out the regional plan adoption and tier B 1B. But yeah.
So it sounds a lot like notice and comment under regular EPAs. Just that it's an objection.
Well,
It's not there's not like an associated appeal process or something.
right. Yeah. So next, minor amendments to regional plan future land use map. A regional planning commission shall submit a request for a minor amendment to the boundaries of a future land use area for consideration by the ERB with a letter of support from the municipality. The request may only be submitted after an affirmative vote of the municipal legislative body and the regional planning commission board. The ERB, after consultation with the community investment board and the regional planning commissions, shall provide guidance about what constitutes a minor amendment. Minor amendments may include any change to a future land use area consisting of fewer than 10 acres. Minor amendment to a future land use area shall not require an amendment to a regional plan as outlined in 4348 of this title of this chapter. The board may adopt rules to implement this section. An affirmative determination of regional plan compliance issued pursuant to this section shall remain in effect until the end of the period for the expiration or readoption of the plan to which it applies. Regional planning commissions shall be provided up to 18 months from a negative determination by the ERB to obtain an affirmative determination of regional plan compliance. If a regional planning commission is unable to obtain affirmative determination of a regional plan compliance, member municipalities shall lose their benefits related to designations, Act 250 or state infrastructure investments. Upon approval by the ERB, the plan shall be considered duly adopted, take effect, and is not appealable. The plan shall be immediately submitted to the entities listed in subsection G of this section. Regional plans may be reviewed from time to time and may be amended in light of new developments and changed conditions affecting the region. As specifically enabled in this section, minor amendments to page 82 in designated areas do not require the amendment of a regional plan. All minor amendments to future land use areas shall be compiled and included in the next iteration of the regional plan.
Okay, so can I just explain what I think will happen, and you tell me if this is accurate? That's all right, so. A municipality or person could bring a minor amendment, or just the regional planning commission to its own plan?
Yes, RBC only.
Okay, so if I, as a business owner, or maybe even the select board chair said, oh shucks, I wanna talk to my regional planning commission, we wanna change, we want something different, or maybe there's a location that we have discussions with developers and we wanna look at it differently. We would have to go to the regional planning commission to ask them to make the amendment if it was 10 acres or smaller.
Yes.
Okay. But what if the RPC says we don't agree with you?
Yep.
Then what happens?
The RPC is in control of that.
But then you, okay, I'm just trying to understand because. Then how, but the regional plan also then limits me municipality. So how, if okay. I guess I just feel like this would hamstring some of the municipalities from making like potential changes, but maybe I'm misunderstanding and I'll save my question for Mr. Baker.
RPCs are made up of municipalities.
Yeah, but they would have to agree 60% to have it go, so.
Line, starting with line 9. So let's say that the towns, all the municipalities have now lost shall lose benefits related to designations of Act 250 or state infrastructure investments. Where do they go when this happens? What's the next step?
They have to update their regional plan and get it approved.
Okay, there's no place they appeal to or.
Correct.
And
On line 14 on page 81. Shall lose benefits related to designations. Act 250 or state infrastructure investments. I feel like we should just add a phrase there to Act 250 because, I mean, are we saying that? I think what is meant maybe is like Act 250 delegation or Act 250 administration.
Yeah, versus like.
Right, because otherwise like Act 50 is going away, what? Like that's, you know what I mean, like that, I think it's a little ambiguous.
Okay.
Okay, that's all.
I don't think delegation is the right word, but.
Oh, okay, fair enough, whatever is the right word, all I mean is that.
like, what do we mean by active benefit?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, the benefit, I presume, is the exemption.
Yeah.
So they lose the exemption.
Yeah.
Because they're getting the
Right.
exemption because they
true.
fit on the plan.
So maybe it's Act 50 exception. But just to be clear. Thanks.
When you were saying, what do you mean by that? Then other people, they will ask the same question later.
For someone like that, actually put the statute on fire. I know that's funny.
But there are some people who don't feel like they're any active.
Yeah.
I would just say, push back, the other 100 pages of this bill would not support that legal determination.
Yeah.
So I realize that lay people reading this may be confused, but there's 100 pages here that support that just because they lose the designation doesn't mean Act 250 goes away.
Okay.
So, right, yeah. That's okay. So on page 82. So in proceedings under Act 250, Chapter 159 and Section 248, in which the provisions of a regional plan or municipal plan are relevant to the determination of any issue in those proceedings. The provisions of the regional plan should be given effect to the extent that they are not in conflict with the provisions of the duly adopted municipal plan. And to the extent that such a conflict exists, the regional plan shall be given effect if it is demonstrated that the project under consideration in the proceeding would have a substantial regional impact as determined by the definition in the regional plan. We have already been discussing this earlier. And then finally, regional planning commissions shall adopt a regional plan in conformance with this title by December 31st, 2026. Okay, section 40, 43, 48A, we have referenced a few times already. These are the elements of the regional plan that the plan has to be consistent with and that the board will be evaluating. This list already exists in statute. It is being reconfigured to address the regional plan report that came out this year. So there's quite a few sort of moving of pieces around. So a regional plan shall be consistent with the goals established in 4302 and shall include the following. A statement of basic policies of the region to guide the growth and development of land and of public services and facilities and protect the environment. A natural resources and working lands element, which shall consist of a map or maps, policies based on ecosystem function, consistent with Vermont conservation design, supports compact centers surrounded by rural and working lands, and that indicates those areas of significant natural resources, including existing and proposed forests, wetlands, vernal pools, rare and irreplaceable natural areas, floodplains, river corridors, recreation, agriculture using the agricultural lands identification process established in 6 VSA section 8, residence, commerce, industry, public and semi-public uses, open spaces, areas reserved for floodplain, forest blocks, habitat connectors, recreation areas, and recreational trails. And areas identified by the state, regional planning commissions, or municipalities that require special consideration for aquifer protection, for wetlands protection, for the maintenance of forest blocks, wildlife habitat and habitat connectors, or for other conservation purposes. It is then striking reference to the designations because that is gonna come up later. Striking reference to flood control and water supply, again, because it's things are just being moved here. Yeah. So then it's leaving intact some of these other categories that are here, agriculture, forest blocks and habitat connectors. And then there's new language on page 85. Encourages preservation of rare and irreplaceable natural areas, scenic and historic features and resources. And encourages protection and improvement of the quality of waters of the state to be used in the development and further into the applicable basin plans established by the Secretary of Natural Resources under 10 VSA section 1253. Regional plans will have an energy element, including, I don't know if you want me to read through this. And then a transportation element consisting of, so changing the maze to stronger language. Jumping ahead to page 86, a utility and facility element. And then on page 86, number 6 has been struck because it is now addressed on the prior page about preservation of rare and irreplaceable natural areas and basin plans. And then page 87, this is the new language on land use categories. And this is what came out of the report. So the regional plans will have a future land use element based upon the elements in this section that sets forth the present and prospective location, amount, intensity, and character of such land uses in relation to the provision of necessary community facilities and services that consist of a map, delineating future land use area boundaries for the land uses in subdivisions A through J of the subdivision 12 as appropriate, and any other special land use category the regional planning commission deems necessary. Descriptions of intended future land uses and policies intended to support the implementation of the future land use element using the following land use categories. Downtown or village centers. These areas are the vibrant mixed-use centers bringing together community, economic activity, and civic assets. They include downtowns, villages, and new town centers, previously designated under Chapter 76A, and downtowns and village centers seeking benefits under the Community Investment Program under Section 804 of this title. The downtown or village centers that are central business and civic centers. The downtown and village centers are the central business and civic centers within planned growth areas, village areas, or may stand alone. Village centers are not required to have municipal water, wastewater, zoning, or subdivision bylaws. Planned growth areas. These areas include the densest existing settlement and future growth areas with the highest concentrations of, onto page 88, population, housing, and employment in each region and town as appropriate. They include a mix of commercial, residential, and civic or cultural sites with active streetscapes, supported by land development regulations, public water, wastewater, or FOLD, and multimodal transportation systems. These areas include new town centers, downtowns, village centers, growth centers, and neighborhood development areas previously designated under Chapter 76A of this title. These areas should generally meet the smart growth principles definition in Chapter 139 of this title and the following criteria. The municipality has a duly adopted and approved plan and a planning process that is confirmed in accordance with Section 4350 of this title, and has adopted bylaws and regulations in accordance with 4414, 4418, and 4442 of this title. The area is served by municipal water or wastewater infrastructure. The area is generally within walking distance from the municipalities or adjacent municipalities, downtown, village center, new town center, or growth center.
Mr. Chair. So I just wanna ask this question, municipalities walk, so the walking distance is within a municipality, it ends at the boundary of the municipality. Or, so, okay,
Yeah,
that's interesting language, just wondered, do we use that anywhere else? Or-
What do you mean?
So we had, well, I'm just thinking back to a previous point of testimony we had, so I guess I really don't have a question for you, but I just wanted to say that that's an interesting way to put that.
well, you have, that whole village overlaps into town of Rose,
Yeah,
a good deal of that village.
yeah, say all, city, town,
But this is, the city, that's a separate municipality, but the city and the town, but in this case, it's two different towns.
yes, but my understanding is it's an adjacent municipalities can also be included based on this.
The
I mean, more flexibility, right?
The area excludes identified flood hazard and fluvial erosion areas. Except those areas containing pre-existing development and areas suitable for infill development as defined in 290201 of the Vermont Flood Hazard Area and River Corridor Rule. On to page 89.
So that 213 check. So
I thought we could use the word fluvial erosion, like.
I circled it.
Okay.
Why do we not use?
an area anymore. River corridor, I don't
Old town?
This is nasty.
I mean, I feel like you guys should be better informed on what the terms are than I am, because I know nothing about water, but we can flag that.
yeah,
As opposed to inundation,
Yes,
water clogs the road.
Do you have a curmudgeonly edit to offer? On page 87, line 11,
Oh, let me guess, is it vibrant?
it must be that one.
Oh, I already circled it.
You're gonna take it out?
Yeah, how do you know what it looks like down there? Need to be vibrant, what if it's a little?
It'll be super vibrant, it'll be lively.
Seasonal
It
depression.
just got from adjectives in, like,
Oh,
what if they're non-vibrant? I mean, it just seems a little odd to be.
A little subjective.
I would like to also flag this,
Subjective, out, down, just it's kind of a judgmental, negative term. But adjectives, we don't really, we don't quite that.
Is he,
Mr. Chair, I would just like to flag, I would like to make sure we keep that worded, just to really.
What's that, on again? Conducive to self-esteem.
we'll put it to a vote.
Right, so we'll warn it here, bulletin board downtown. Okay, so let's press on.
Emotionally supported.
On page 89. The municipal plan indicates that this area is intended for higher density residential and mixed use development. The area provides for housing that meets the needs of a diversity of social and income groups in the community. The area is served by planned or existing transportation infrastructure that conforms with complete streets principles as described under 19 VSA 309D. And establishes pedestrian access directly to the downtown, village center or Newton Center. Planned transportation infrastructure includes those investments, including the municipality's capital improvement program. Village areas, so I do just want to plug that so these are categories. And I just want to flag that and rating it, we have village areas and village centers. I did try to figure out another word. I haven't come up with another word, but about like burg. Bill, that's probably not it, but anyways, just wanna flag. Village areas as opposed to village centers. These areas include a traditional settlement area or a proposed new settlement area. Typically comprised of a cohesive mix of residential, civic, religious, commercial, and mixed-use buildings. Arranged along a main street and intersecting streets that are within walking distance for the residents who live within and surrounding the core. Village areas have one of the following: municipal water, wastewater, or land development regulations. If no municipal wastewater is available, the area must have soils that are adequate for wastewater disposal. They provide some opportunity for infill development or new development areas where the village can grow and be flood resilient. These areas include existing village center designations and similar areas statewide, but this area is larger than the village center designation. On to page 90. Village areas must meet the following criteria. The municipality has a duly adopted and approved plan and a planning process that is confirmed in accordance with 4350. The municipality has adopted bylaws and regulations in accordance with 4440, 4418, 4442.
And what? Sorry, thank you. It's curious to me that we've got on page 90, village areas must be following criteria. As like this is what helps constitute a village area, but then back on page 89, on line 16. We've got another sort of list of what it takes to constitute a village area, and
Thank you.
I guess was that done on purpose? Does it make sense to have one list? To say this is what, you know, what you need to have to be a village area. Or a bird.
I think we could potentially rewrite that,
Yeah,
Just seeing what's too tests.
Yeah, two tests, and also the lists are not consistent with each other, so sort of like which list are we going with? Anyway, they're just flagging.
Um, in that same section, though, I did like something that for question, lane development regulation. So we can say something like municipal planning bylaw. Bylaw, is that a catch-all term for zoning bylaws, land development regulations?
Yeah, but. It probably is a good idea to be more specific.
Well, in my experience, I don't know that I've seen that term before, so that's why I'm asking, like, I did say, for usually fairly specific, well, what constitutes regulation, adequate regulation,
I like that too.
so move, consolidate. Yeah,
We haven't decided on a change yet for that, but you're like.
Sounds like we're gonna rewrite the whole thing with advice, perhaps.
or
See,
council, knowing what we're asking about, well, come forward with something.
Perhaps there will be some testimony.
It's making some suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
oh, yeah, there might be. Let's see.
on page 90, still in this section on village areas. Unless the municipality has adopted flood hazard and river corridor bylaws applicable to the entire municipality. That are consistent with the standards established pursuant to 10 VSA 755B and 1428B. The area excludes identified flood hazard and fluvial erosion areas, except those areas containing pre-existing development and areas suitable for infill development as defined in 2902 of the Vermont Flood Hazard Area River Corridor.
Make sure I know where, so these are all land use categories, right?
Yes.
And these are all under the ACCD programs or?
No,
Whose categorization is this?
This is the RPC.
Yeah, it's either.
This is what came out of their report.
Yeah.
To bring consistency and uniformity to the RPC maps.
Okay.
And so these are the categories that they will be imposing on their new maps and that the ERB will be reviewing. So next is transition or infill area. These areas include areas of existing or planned commercial, office, mixed-use development or residential uses, either adjacent to a planned growth area or village area, or a new standalone transition or infill area, and served by or planned for municipal water or wastewater or both. The intent of this land use category is to transform these areas into higher density, mixed-use settlements or residential neighborhoods through infill and redevelopment or new development. New commercial strip auto-oriented development is not allowed as to prevent negatively impacting the economic vitality of commercial areas in the adjacent or nearby planned growth area or village area. On the top of page 91, this area could also include adjacent green fields, safer from flooding and planning for future growth.
I'm guessing we all wanna know what
Not allowed.
strip auto oriented development is. Is that auto, as in automobile, what auto
Yes.
are we talking about?
It's, so it is, such is prohibited, they're not allowed.
Yes,
What's the difference between the two phrases,
well,
legal point of view?
this is a land use map. It is not entirely binding in legal ways as municipal bylaws are. So yeah. Does not carry the legal weight and is not like a regulatory mechanism the way bylaws specifically are. On page 91. Resource-based recreation areas. These areas include large scale.
Step by and just since we're
Oh,
just past 30, let's finish page 91 and pause and have a survey. Never mind.
So I apologize, I didn't fully understand that line on line 20 to 21.
Development
Yes.
oriented development.
Yes, I guess I had missed, when you asked the questions, I thought, I didn't understand. So this is basically letting it be easier to have car dealerships.
No,
No,
Is it doing the opposite?
nothing.
it's doing neither, actually.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is about, alright, so we have a map of town. We already went through like the core areas. Now we're kind of moving out further from the
Yes.
core areas, and these are transition areas.
Yes.
So these areas can allow for mixed use development and different types of commercial entities. However, new development shall not contribute to strip auto oriented development. So it's not supposed to be strip development, this needs to have pedestrian friendly. It's not supposed to contribute to strip, so it isn't about specifically the selling of cars. It's a. It can help, this area should not take away from the compact settlement areas.
Speeders. Versus you might need a car if you're gonna get to these places.
Yes, that is what I originally thought, and then I reread that sentence and thought perhaps it was, so I think I would need. Maybe I would like to flag that as well, sure, I don't like.
Just as an example, I think it's not creating new. Like between South Burlington and Shelburne Road. Where that's auto oriented strip development all the way down.
Yeah.
It's not creating new land
Versions
use
of
of
that,
that in other places.
great. I like that, if that's what it is, yes.
Great, so I think
How does this differ though? We've had an anti-strip development policy for 20 years. How does this differ?
It is not intending to differ from it. This is capturing a uniformity that all the regional planning commission should be using the same metrics on their maps. And so many of them are probably using this sort of terminology and the determination already, but perhaps not all of them are. So this is trying to bring consistency and uniformity to the terms that are used in the plans and the maps.
so let's. Transition over to Mr. Baker. I realized too, I may be misreading this when I said
Yeah.
auto is an automobile and then automobile oriented development as in developing literally
Yeah, that's-
automobile dealers or development that you would need a car to get there.
It's that,
Because they're
that is where, okay,
Yeah.
right, and so one sounds like no new car dealers, which we would, I don't think we would say that.
It was what we're also supposed to say those words, that's okay, intended.
yeah, okay.
So
Yeah,
please,
I think the idea of trying to avoid a human footprint that presumes everybody has a car. That kind of happened after World War II. I mean, it's actually kind of getting going in the 1920s. By 1970s, that's American. That's, but we're closing that barn door at the cows.
Yes, Robert Moses.
yeah, holy Moses, okay, with that. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure the
Mr.
regional planners will explain it all fully.
Right, so I'm putting the pond sticker.
Yeah, 30.
G, page 91, but.
Forward to the rewrite.
Okay, actually very fun.
You want to Mr. Baker, so we have 25 minutes and we're game for hearing whatever you want to share with us about.
For the record, Charles Baker here on behalf of Vermont Association of Planning and Development Agencies. We did provide document PDF this morning, so it's probably online there if you want to reference that later. I've made a couple notes on that as a result of your conversation. So if with your indulgence, we will probably update that to reflect some other suggestions consistent with your discussion.
We would look forward to updated versions.
Yeah.
We're gonna be doing live editing every day.
And I also realized you did not have the benefit of hearing us report out from these reports that got done over the summer. So I appreciate your patience knowing that and kind of taking all of this 132 page bill here, plus the other 75 pages of 311.
Thank you for saying.
I commend courage and perseverance.
Oh, God.
So 323 pages, so.
Approximately, yeah. So having said that, and you have touched on some of the thoughts I think we want to bring to the table. And one, Mr. Chair, at some point you mentioned flexibility. I think one of the things that we were trying to bring up in the House was just realizing that there's a whole spectrum of communities in Vermont. And so we're trying to come up with a system that can deal with a wide variation of detailed situations on the ground.
Yes.
Again, thank you for your understanding of that. We're trying to nonetheless categorize and group. So let me start off with what we actually put in writing. Thank you for addressing your work in addressing our housing crisis, improving environmental protection, strengthening the planning and permitting process, better support implementation of municipal and regional plans. And I think I want to pause there for a second, just kind of note like, this is kind of strengthening the connection between town, regional plans and the state regulatory system. In a way, we've only had criterion 10. This is making a stronger connection and really filling a gap that has not been filled since the capability development plan has never really been implemented. In our comments, I got just 3 general comments, and then some specific comments on 311 and on 687 for your consideration. The first one is kind of maybe how to put these together. I think Mr. Chair, you already kind of touched on this. Our first thought is please add the language for the purpose section. We're assuming you're going to be kind of 687 is the base on which you're going to add. So please add language to the purpose section and maybe the bill title noting the importance of addressing the housing crisis. And we have some language, the regulatory reform of Act 250, clarification of municipal zoning reforms adopted last year in S100, tax policy grant program. So we're trying to capture the 311 language to add to 687.
Just so I'm taking notes, are the things you're sharing with us now,
Are in writing
okay,
so far. I'll let you know when I veer off script.
thank you. That way I can listen better and not try to keep up.
Should have keep on your.
Yeah, the second general comment, and then again, this is probably something you've already thought through, but we think we can take sections 2 to 22 and 27 to 67 from 311 and add them to 687. All those sections, I don't think there's really any duplication of anything in 687, those sections that are in 311.
You say the numbers, well,
2 to 22, 27 to 67. So these are all sections related to interim Act 250 jurisdictional changes and exemptions. And S100 municipal zoning clarifications, then tax credits, taxes, housing programs, rental daily elections, short-term rentals. Sorry, I won't read the whole list, but you know what's in 311. We're recommending that the long-term Act 250 sections that are in 311, sections 23 to 26, not be carried over from 311 to 687, as the relevant provisions have been worked out in 687. So we're really saying the long-term system has been much better debated and worked out in 687, which is a lot of what you've been talking about already. And then we have some suggested modifications to some of the early sections of 311, particularly around those interim exemptions. I'll take those in a couple minutes.
Like we we've had conversations with you and others a little bit briefly on priority housing requests.
Yeah, we'll come back to that in a couple minutes. And we do recognize this need for immediate exemptions or jurisdictional changes. Therefore, we'd like to see the final bill include some short-term activity exemptions similar to those in 311, while starting the process for longer-term system change in the planning permitting process for proposal 687. We believe the new system outlined in 687 with permanent activity jurisdictional changes will more strongly support implementation to the medium and long term of municipal and regional plans by encouraging housing in areas of growth and better protecting state's natural resources. The RPCs are committed to support this work so that all communities can participate regardless of local capacity. Sorry, that's us kind of making a note of a lot of House discussion or rural caucus discussion of concern about small towns being able to access benefits. So we're trying to express our commitment to supporting all of our towns, especially the small towns. Larger towns can, hold their own road, but we know we need to use more to support the smaller towns.
Yes. But it also goes both ways in that regard. So I feel that sometimes the RPCs are actually extremely helpful to small towns in a way that it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
appreciate that commentary, but
Yeah, now to 311, so, and I know you're deep in 687, so this is taking you back a week or two. In 311, in sections 2 and 3, to make this more consistent with 687, we would recommend modifying these sections to create a new, and our best thought on this transitional, I think you kind of had talked about the roller coaster of exemptions. We don't want to have a roller coaster, we'd rather have a smooth ramp. And so we're suggesting a new, call it an interim tier 1A and an interim tier 1B. And including reference to this in section 32 of H687. This will provide immediate exemptions as contemplated by 311 using the framework of exemptions in section 32 of 687. So the interim tier 1A would exempt all housing from Act 250 in the designated downtowns with a half-mile border, and then the other kind of more dense designations, new town centers, neighborhood development areas, and growth centers. Interim tier 1B would exempt housing up to 50 units on 10 acres or less in the village centers with, and I think what we submitted says zoning or subdivision regulations, but I do think we might want to start using a more generic term of land development regulations. Just because we have some more innovative regulatory things that are happening in municipalities that we just wouldn't want them, and they're not like what we're traditionally called zoning and subdivision regulations that are form-based codes, or they're doing unified development codes, or some of them are just calling their land development regulations. So I'm not sure that's defined in statute, which maybe that's a good follow-up question that we might want to clarify. Sorry, but I was talking about tier 1B, village center with land development regulations, including an additional quarter-mile boundary. And then one other flag that has come to our attention after S100 is to make sure that there's clarity and consistency about where these exemptions are applying or to whom they're applying. So it's very clear they're applying to people that might be pursuing a new permit, but it's not clear about amendments. And so we just would like that to be consistent. And you already had some discussion about kind of the permit process in tier 1A and stuff this morning, but so we'd like to make sure that these apply not only to new permits, but also amendment to existing permits or the language, original and amended jurisdiction. Second major comment is we recommend adding language to make clear that the priority housing project may continue at least until the end of 2026, and also be allowed in downtowns and village centers permanently. And we provide you some suggested language here. And we know 311 struck priority housing projects. I think the housers or the local housing folks are a little bit on the fence about whether how to weigh in on this. From our position, it seems like they're encouraging a good thing, which is a percentage of affordable units in those housing projects. We'd like to see that continue and make sure that those folks that are trying to do those kinds of projects aren't on a roller coaster where they can do priority housing projects this year, but then it's pulled out of statute next year. We'd like that to continue, and you're getting a report on what to do by the end of the year anyway, so at least continue it for this year. So that the rug isn't pulled out from somebody who's working on a project like that right now.
Well, and it also seems like it's the only place where we're explicit about affordability.
Yeah, and it seems like a good thing, and you know, we've been, folks have been talking about tier 1A, it's a full exemption, but. We also see some benefit if a community only wants to stay as a 1B community. From to having these priority housing projects. Because there's no, I think in S1, last year you removed the cap for priority housing projects, so there's kind of an incentive already built in. To encouraging those affordable or mixed income projects to continue. Oh, sorry.
So can I just ask though, because how many communities would then have access to the priority housing project definition? Because currently, you can only build a priority housing project in downtowns, neighborhood development areas, growth centers, new town centers. So those areas are likely to be, well, they're gonna be converged into the centers or the neighborhoods. I'm trying to picture the overlap of what areas would be left for building priority housing projects. Especially with tier 1B.
Yeah, tier would be, it would be really the neighborhood development areas adjacent to village centers. And that's kind of the easiest path now for a community to get some designation that provides some Act 250 benefit is a neighborhood development area. And there's also, you haven't gotten to this yet, 687, but there's a provision that you're talking about the designations of kind of keeping the existing designations in place for this next year or two. So that's where while we're keeping those designations in place, we should keep the priority housing project process in place.
Yeah.
That's all I think.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking 2 years from now.
Yeah, afterwards, I think that's maybe the subject of that report back to the legislature, like should it stay after 26?
Well, I'm sure there's a shared interest, but it's so often we end up flipping from one term to the other, to say we need housing.
Yeah.
And other people will say, well, we're having housing crisis, so we need affordable housing, and then affordable sort of slips away and it's housing. Since I work in that industry, like everyone I know is building housing that I have to say is market rate housing. And it's I know we're all
Market rate,
not data, but I'm just concerned that we may not support affordable housing.
Yeah,
That's term says.
we share that concern with losing that priority housing.
Are you surprised?
So we'd like to do that, so.
It's more the same.
We have, the next 3 comments are more minor comments, on page 6 of 311 in section 3. If you go with our first couple recommendations, you can delete subsection BB. If you implement our interim exemption suggestion. Page 6, section 4, we support the providing the signs to promote public awareness, so that's just noting that we support that provision. On section 5 in 311, page 7, we recommend that the NRB be required to provide a rule for about the acceptance of permits or approval by any other state agency. Right now it's a may phraseology there. And then another major comment in section 5, line 5, we recommend that criterion 9 can be removed from this provision. This is about whether a municipal permit is determinative in an Act 250 proceeding. And just we don't think that a municipal permit is necessarily evidence of conformance with either of those criteria. So that's a pretty down the rabbit hole comment there. And again, this relates to the priority housing project in section 8, page 9. If priority housing projects do remain, we recommend retaining 10 VSA 6081 subsection P, which is slated for deletion. So that was our comments down about 311. We have mostly run the intro.
Sorry, 61P, before is what?
I don't,
It's the exemption related to, private.
yeah, and that was supposed to be deleted. In that section, so we're saying, please don't delete it. So turning to 687, which you're now more than halfway through. Again, the same comment about we recommend adding more about the need for housing in the purpose section. And then maybe also the title. Section 2, a minor comment, it refers to the capability development plan, which doesn't really exist, so I think that right, we'd probably just clean up and take that out. Where it doesn't, yeah, point made. And then in sections 26 and 27, this is, I think you already covered this, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, about tier 3, we do support that rulemaking to develop a clear and reasonable definition of tier 3. Okay, now here's where more of the rub comes, and you were starting to put your finger on it just a little bit ago. There's a little bit of room maybe to improve the criteria for tier 1B. Between what's in the Act 250 section of the bill and what's in the regional planning future land use definition section. And so one easy solution, and probably, I mean, you just kind of caught that in the future land use section, there's inconsistent language just on 2 pages. And that's been a result of group editing. But there's also language in this Act 250 section. We'd like, if possible, to have it just refer to one place, go one way or the direction, either we, as a regional planning commission, go look at the Act 250 criteria, or our preference would be to have Act 250 look at the criteria in the regional plan section. And try to get clarity on what that criteria should be. Sorry, let me kind of look at that page again, just to make sure I don't misspeak. Page 50 is where the criteria for 1B is in 687. And so one of them is that the municipality has requested area be mapped for tier 1B. We made some progress on softening that. We actually think that language can be eliminated. We're going through a process that includes the municipalities in developing these future land use maps. So anything we can do to kind of reduce, even maybe it's just a letter, that's all it is, maybe you can say, but we don't think it's really necessary to keep there. The idea is to simplify the process for local based jurisdiction and encourage housing. And so, yeah, we do recognize that some municipalities may want Act 250 jurisdiction to remain. Therefore, we suggest providing an option for a municipality to opt out, similar to 10-acre versus 1-acre towns now. This could be a new subsection D, that part of the bill, which would allow for a municipality that's eligible for tier 1B status to formally request of the board that they be excluded from the tier 1B jurisdictional change if the municipality is elected by ordinance adopted under 24 to have this jurisdiction apply. So in other words, we think it's probably important for the municipality. We know there are going to be some smaller municipalities that we might map as they qualify for 1B status, but may, for whatever reason, that maybe staffing at the municipality or some other reason, or maybe they feel like their zoning is weak, that they would really like to have Act 250 continue to apply. So we want some sort of opt-out suggestion.
But, so the municipality would decide that,
If they want to opt out.
and when you say the municipality would decide, what does that mean?
Yeah, or select board.
The select board would have to vote a
Yeah, there's a
majority of,
process in statute,
okay,
similar to the 10-acre versus 1-acre towns.
okay, so that is a vote of the select board.
Yeah.
So if I was a select board and the 3 of us said we don't wanna do this, but then we hear from a bunch of developers who go, actually, little did you know, we think there's lots of benefit in this. And the select board goes either they made a decision, they tell you they don't wanna move forward, what would happen? But then they hear more back from developers.
You know, do you wanna take it?
I can take that, sure. Catherine Demetric, Northwest Regional Planning Commission. So our proposed language requires the municipality to make that decision via an ordinance.
Oh.
Which is the same process they do now if they qualify as a 10-acre town, but want to be considered. Or if they qualify as a 1-acre town, but want to be considered as a 10-acre town. So in that case, if the municipality changes its mind, it would simply go through the process of taking back the ordinance.
Okay, cause that could happen,
Right.
Yeah, so it would be a public process of.
Right.
thank you, that is
That's a
very
local
helpful.
political process, right? I mean, if your select board isn't doing what you want them to do,
Yeah.
you have elections, right? So.
You have elections, you have public comments.
Right.
Thank you, that was all.
Yeah, and I think I think that's one example of just trying to realize municipalities are all different places. We kind of recommend this even with a little bit of concern, we have a little bit of anxiety of municipalities that are just trying to exclude housing development. And so, you know, there's some balance there, I don't know, but nonetheless, it did seem like this is a good idea for maybe some towns to have that option. So I mentioned eliminating the request from the municipality. We also would like to either eliminate or reduce the water and wastewater requirement the way it's worded, knowing that any project has to go through permitting process for water, wastewater, however they do it, whether it's on-site septic or sewer. F, I think, relates to the staffing capacity. We don't really see the need for that as a specific criteria either, since when they're adopting zoning, they're already committing to enforcing that and to having somebody, you know, a zoning administrator, even if it's a part-time person that they share with another town, enforce that. So we don't see that need for that to be a specific requirement.
Seems like it could be tricky to assess.
Yeah, and that's the thing, more subjective of like, you know, what's staffing capacity, we're trying to get away from some of these subjective things as well.
I want also, you know, I lived with more than one cautionary tale, like. There were rules and they weren't enforced.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I guess a few more minutes here and we'll be done. In pages 51 to 52, it's probably reviewed yesterday or so, there's some interim exemptions there. Kind of already suggested that you do something a little bit different than what's in 687. Pages 53 to 54, kind of a similar issue with tier 1A. We would like to see the requirements be simplified. And again, the simplest thing from our view is to just reference the planned growth area criteria that we have in the future land use section of the bill. That's one simple way to do it. Or if it needs to stay in two places, then we do think that the urban form bylaws can be removed, the historic preservation bylaws be removed, the wildlife habitat bylaws be removed. And the wastewater requirement also be removed, again, because that gets addressed through permitting, not really the planning stage. So it's not that we're not supportive of all of those concepts, it's just that it's creating more burden, even on our largest towns. I mean, honestly, I haven't really heard of a town that's saying, oh, we can do all that money stuff yet. So we're creating a system that, you know, even our largest towns would have a strong goal getting through. I don't think we're really creating a system that works too well.
Sorry, can you say, I think I must have missed like the first part of it, can you say, like, why are those sections? What would happen for those sections to be taken out?
We're recommending that they be taken.
Oh, just, okay,
Delete those requirements or modify them in a way to make them more attainable. So there could be some language that says, because almost all the zoning bylaws has language that maybe address the character, you know, urban form or natural resource areas. So they may have some language, but the way it's phrased right now, it's kind of a pretty high bar.
And it's duplicative of other things.
It could be somewhat duplicative. but, or we're raising the bar beyond where we've ever told municipalities we want them to go before.
Oh, I see.
Right, like wildlife,
Yeah.
there is no state permit for wildlife.
And there's never been a requirement for municipalities to
Right,
regulate that.
so that, I mean, in my mind, that's an area that would be lost, that would be a gap.
If we took those.
If we did not require municipalities to have wildlife.
Yeah.
By law.
But it's never been required before.
Right.
So it is, we are, again, to our point. I think we're coming from a philosophical standpoint, of trying to be more inclusive. And to have more parts of the state be able to support increased housing. And so we're concerned that adding new requirements is reducing that area and kind of working against the housing goal. Sorry, one more quick things.
Well, can I, just this, we're going over by a minute or two, but
So
just
what are we
so
done?
well, I know we bookmarked that, but it seems like a bigger conversations. We're trying to facilitate expedited housing at,
Right.
we're all in agreement on that. Another thing is, when we. Are we, is there, Cormac's point of view, are we forgetting about things that we thought were important in order to do that, in order to expedite and.
Yeah, there's
Wildlife habitat might be a new one, historic preservation, urban form, waste and wastewater. So if they're addressed, if it's duplicative, that seems different than
Yeah, that's,
removing.
yeah,
So I feel like I need to learn more.
yes.
Yeah, and, you know, I think we do need to understand the municipal perspective, I think, on this, of like what has been required of municipalities previously and frankly, what has been happening already, right? I mean, I'm sure you got testimony about Act 250 every year. I mean, most housing development is going under the threshold of Act 250, right? I think they only see like 20% of the housing units. So in our mind, we're not taking anything away, we're trying to stop something that isn't already happening. And can the bylaws be improved at municipalities? I'm sure. But let's have some more thought than just kind of unilaterally raising the bar in a way that, or maybe they're not gonna achieve. So, yeah, if you want to pause here.
No, let's keep going.
Okay, so,
Push the end. I know
one more
there's more conversation to be had, but let's finish at least get
All those
things on the table.
Yes, we do have a lunch commitment when many of us.
restrictions.
Yes, so
He has an appointment in pro tem.
Can we just do 2 minutes?
20 seconds.
Okay.
20 seconds, page 94, there's language about BAFTA, our state association, updating standard, developing and updating standard methodology for mapping of tier 1B status areas. We'd like that to be all future land use areas, so we're asking for more burden to be put on RPCs to come up with guidance language on the mapping. And then this last comment. Page 94, 95, section 41, we do support this, the study of regional plans capacity and consistency. So that's in there, and we support that. And, I think that's really it. I think the real rub is kind of the 1A and 1B criteria and making those more workable.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Are you gonna revise a little bit? You said based on today's.
I think so. I think we're trying to work a little bit more on the 1A process.
So when you said that you went over, we'll post it and distribute it by email to everyone. To have it ASAP. Okay, thank you for everyone doing the 2 minutes ago, and we are adjourned.
Okay, I'm so hungry. Are we going to the youth for lunch?